Okay, last Wednesday night we were talking about the first part of chapter 5, and we were talking about elders. It was talking about the job of an elder is to shepherd the flock and talk about how they are examples, and we spent some time talking about example, and it talked about how they're to be not lording it over or demanding, but to be the kind of leaders that encourage us to follow. And then in verse 5, it says young men. Now, I don't know what it means by young men. I mean, the first glance, you probably think that's talking about Corbin, or you think that's talking about Gideon, or I'm not sure that's right. I think it's just talking about a younger generation, whatever that is, younger than those who are elders. So if you got a set of elders that are in their 60s and you got some people in their 40s, that may be the younger generation we're talking about, that we're talking to here. And so in the same way, it says, be submissive to those who are older. Now, in a context, it sounds like you're being submissive to the elders, but it also is just talking about being submissive to those who are older than you or respectful to those who are older than you. Why would he have to put that in there? I mean, I just stopped and thought, well, why did he have to write that?
Must have been abusing that. That must not have been taking place, or there was arguments going on or something.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to me. I talked to a person last Friday from Houston, and he preaches at a church of about, I don't know, like maybe close to 1,000, 800, 900, and really good church. And he said, you know, our younger families, and he said, I'm talking about 40 and less. He said they are so active, and they have this one mindset, and he talked about the mindset and so forth. And he said, in essence, I think he said something about those who are, let's just use the word more difficult, are the ones that are maybe in their 50s and somewhere in there. And so you think about that, and I've heard in years gone by elders say that people back when I was about that age, that we were the problem, that my age was the problem. So I guess maybe you reach a point in time where in a church setting, you think you maybe know more than those who are leading you. And you are willing to say you think you know more, and you're willing to act like you know more, and that always causes what? What does it always cause?
Chaos.
All right, it causes chaos. It causes division. It causes strife. And yet at the same time, we can kind of back up and see that as we grow up as children and with our parents, I hear people talk about when the young people thought they knew more than their parents. I'm not sure I ever thought that. I'm really not sure I ever thought I knew more than my parents. I don't think I ever went down that pathway very much. But I hear people talk like that, and you begin to be a bit defiant, and you begin to be a bit rebellious, and so forth and so on. So as we are whatever stage we're in, and we look to those who lead us, our job is to be, and here's this word that we've talked about so often, we're to be submissive. We're to be understanding. We're to be respectful. And we are to maybe be obedient when we don't even understand why we're being called upon to do this or that. And I can tell you that we've had earlier passages, even in this book, where it talked about being submissive to leaders. And we've gone through all that 2 or 3 times. What if the leaders aren't working for your good? And what if the leaders are going in a wrong direction? And we all have to sort through that personally. And we all suit according to our own conscience and so forth.
Again, in that verse, he's talking about humility.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always kind of wondered somewhere in the back of Peter's mind, he wasn't thinking about the foot washing scene and being humble servants.
Okay. So he goes on to say, all of you. Now, who's all of you? Everyone he's writing to, or is it a context of elders and it's a context of those who are not elders? But all of you ought to be humble. Clothe yourself in humility one toward another. Now, I don't think there's one chance in the world for anyone to ever comprehend and practice submission without humility. And I don't think there's one chance to really find any true success in this world without humility. You may gain what you think is success, but I'm telling you, humility is that special quality that is a little hard to find in a lot of places. And go ahead and listen to this. Because, the reason why you ought to humble yourselves is because God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Now, someone explain what that means, that he opposes the proud. What does that mean?
Pride goes before a fall.
Okay, and back in the proverb it says, pride goes before a fall. Have you ever seen that happen? I have seen that happen over and over and over again. And I can honestly say, and I've said it to you before, I have fired more people with what I call ego out of control or pride problems than for any other single reason. Because they end up not telling the truth. They end up cutting corners, thinking they won't get caught. They end up not doing a lot of things they should do and doing a lot of things they shouldn't do because they think they're invincible. And they easily destroy everything around them, and they easily destroy themselves. And it's really easy to find that problem in our lives. And so I will tell you that all of us ought to be thinking about our humility versus our pride all the time, because it's fairly easy to let it creep into your life when maybe you're thinking all the while you're really humble. And I have actually had people say to me, I'm an humble type person, and everything I see in them is prideful. I mean, I've literally, and they believe it. They believe they're humble type person. Yeah, but with their actions and with it's, I don't know.
I think this is speaking just to, really to the elders and the younger men, because you've got the younger men would be proud because, like you said, they think they're more knowledgeable. The elders would be proud because of their status or their position.
Right.
So I mean, I know many Bible verses you can apply to different, but I think in context here it is about elders and probably those who would challenge elders who were younger, a little bit haughty, probably arrogant.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think it also applies right here in this context, but I also think it applies in all of life. So you talk to someone who's a hospital administrator over a large hospital, and they're going to tell you it's very difficult to manage a hospital system with a large group of medical practitioners because they easily become, with the feeling at least, that they have many, many, many answers. And can you see how easily that would come to them? Because think about what a medical practitioner does all day long, every day. And they do it so quickly. They go from one room to another room, they grab a chart, they walk in, they look at your symptoms, and they tell you what? Do this, this, and this, and they expect you to do it, right? And so it's very easy to think I can control. I'm in control of almost everything. And there's so many of us in life that have situations where we think we're pretty good. Money can make you feel like that. A title can make you feel like that. People patting you on the back can make you feel like that. It's all kinds of things.
Well, that's kind of what the example he had for even the guy said, hey, look at all the crops we made this year. I'm going to tear down my barns, I'm going to build bigger ones, look what I've done.
Right.
And that night his life was required.
That's right. And God doesn't like that, because when God gives you increase and God gives you the ability to lead, or God gives you a voice, or God gives you an oil well, or God gives you whatever it is, it's God giving it. It's not that you got it. It's not that you were anything special. You were in the right place at the right time and whatever. It's God's gift. And so when I kind of start taking credit for these things, and God's looking at me saying, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten how you got this? This is my deal. Why wouldn't he oppose the proud? And there are so many stories in Scripture, and I know Burke's right. I know this is talking about in a church setting. But don't you love that Old Testament story in the days when Isaiah was the prophet about a king named Uzziah? And Uzziah starts off, and Uzziah is everything he touches, God blesses. And agriculturally, the land is wonderful. I mean, it's all, everything's producing. Militarily, no one can stand against him. Everything is perfect, and God keeps blessing him until one day he does what? He stands on his rooftop and says what? I think it's his rooftop. I'm not sure about that, but I think it's rooftop. It's kind of like, wow, look what I built. You know what happens in the next second? Well, he might as well have fallen off the roof. That's actually a pretty good assumption. He was stricken with leprosy, and he was out of sight and out of mind and recluse from that day forth, because God looks at him and says, "How dare you? How dare you say something like that when I've done every bit of this for you?" So God opposes the proud. Now watch this. But he gives what to the humble? What in the world does that mean? What does that mean?
Unmerited favor.
All right, unmerited favor, extreme kindness. Even though I am a sinner, and even though I still make mistakes, and even though whatever you want to add to all that, he looks at those who are humble and those who keep looking toward him, and he says, I will pour my grace on you. So it's the guy who offers the prayer in contrast to the other guy, and he won't even so much as look up into heaven. He says, have mercy on me, a sinner. And God kind of likes that one. He doesn't like the other one who says, I sure do think I'm not like that guy over there. I mean, I sure do think I'm so much better than that person over there. Isn't that ridiculous? And yet we see people acting like that all the time.
Or can they act like the Romans did in Romans chapter 6, where they said, well, hey, we really like this grace. Maybe we'll keep sinning so we can get more of it.
Right.
And they justify their actions.
So they start abusing it. But. So humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Put yourself under God's hand, because if you need to be lifted up, who's going to lift you up? God's going to lift you up. You don't need to help him. That's the message I'd like to give to everybody I could, including myself. You don't need to help him lift yourself up. He will lift you up when He's ready. He'll let you be seen. He'll let you be heard. He'll let you be recognized. Whatever is in His plan, He'll take care of it. Now, at that point in verse 7, I don't know exactly how to tie it together. It seems like often in the end of letters, there are almost bullet points. But now he comes along and says, cast all your cares on Him. You can finish the verse, can't you? Because He cares for you. Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. If I said I don't even like that verse, what would you say? If I said I don't even like that verse, what would you say? That I've lost my mind? It's one of the, I think being humble in this world of ours is really, really hard. And I think being humble in a church setting and listening to people who have authority over you is really, really hard sometimes. But I think getting rid of anxiety by putting it in God's hands is extremely hard. Does anybody identify with that? Because everybody is saying right now, everywhere I turn, there's more anxiety in the world today than maybe ever before in our history. I don't know if that's true. How can I know if that's true? I've only been a little short part of history. But in modern day history, there's more anxiety. And so you go to a university campus, and there is no doubt about it. There is more anxiety among students who come to that campus than ever before. And so you have to do more with counseling and counseling centers and help groups and whatever you can than ever before. And so the president of OBU was interviewed the other night after every building on that campus was touched in that storm. And it was bad. We sent some people over Monday. They came back and showed me pictures, and I'm not sure they can ever overcome all that. He did a stellar job of saying, we have a lot of support. We have our alumni. We have God on our side. But the reporter kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. What are you doing for emotional support for your students? What are you doing for emotional support? It's on their minds, and they're making it worse. They're making it worse. But people are anxious. And in this room, guess what? Guess what's true in this room? There are some people who are anxious. And it comes and goes, I know that, and sometimes it comes and stays, but we're anxious. And you've heard me say for the last long bit of time that I think the only answer to this is to continue to create the habit of trusting God. I don't think you can read that verse. You can't read that verse once an hour for the next 200 hours and it change anything unless you first put your trust in God and you keep learning how to do that and you keep trying to practice that. And I've been trying to practice that, and I'm still not there. But I will tell you this, there are a lot of pretty big things coming occasionally at me. And for some reason, people will look at me and say, are you holding up? Are you going to be okay? Or you're like, yes. And I think, it's okay. It's okay. Whichever way it goes, it's okay. We'll work our way through this. When we have a big ruling next Wednesday, a week from today, from a judge, and I got asked that this morning. It's okay. Either way it goes, it's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. There was a time when I would not have felt that way, and I don't know if it's that's happening to me, or if I'm just getting old and not sharp enough to realize. I am working these. I have two puzzles on my phone, 2 games that are supposed to help my mind be quicker, and one of them I've done right at 4,000 of them. It keeps count how many I've done. I'm getting sharper all the time, but it could just be my age and I'm not getting sharper. Maybe I'm getting duller, and maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. I don't think so though.
And there's something right now in our society. People are actually, they gain cachet, gain status by their anxieties. And so no one's encouraged ever to let them, they're encouraged to, they multiply and multiply, and then you're supposed to share others, bring them into find some sort of solidarity in anxiety, but never really find a way to get past it.
Right. And in our society, going along with that, it's common for people to say, you said this one little thing and it caused emotional distress for me, and so therefore you are obligated to me in certain ways. Now that's happening in school systems everywhere. That's happening in other places. You use this phrase and it caused emotional distress, and so you're obligated to correct and do this or that. Everybody understand that? I know a president of a university who's no longer president. He's been removed, but wasn't removed for this reason. But he was in Tennessee, and he had a group of students to his house, and one of the decorations that had been provided by someone else, an interior decorator, was a decoration of cotton. A wreath of cotton or whatever. And guess what some students said? Yeah, it's a racist symbol, and was big news, statewide news. Really? So how many cotton growers? Huh?
He got fired for that?
No, he got fired for something else, but this was part. So how many cotton growers we have in the audience? I see 2. So what do we do with them? I'm just telling you, the world is like this, and it's producing more anxiety. And the way we're going to navigate this world right now is to be humble and to learn in our humility to put our trust in God. Because without humility, you'll never trust God. And without trusting God, you're never going to be free from anxiety. Because you're trying your best to say, it's all yours. It's up to you. And yes, I'm in pain, and yes, I'm in a stage in life I don't like, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, but I belong to you. Does that make sense to you? So, I'm not going to get done. It's time to quit, because there's this last verse 8 that we got to talk about. So I'm not. I thought I'd finish this tonight. We'll go to 2 Peter. I can't finish it because we got to talk about the roaring lion that's looking to devour us and that kind of thing. But there's no way out of this world correct with God without humility. Okay. And humility is a prerequisite for submissiveness. It's a prerequisite for trust, true trust. You don't have humility, you're going to trust in whom? Yourself, or what you possess, or your high-ranking friend who's a judge, or something like that.